Whether it's the France regime we all know and love, or names such as Earnhardt, Petty, and Elliott, family blood has reigned supreme in NASCAR's top level. And when we're talking about the Labontes, there's no exception here as well. The Labonte brothers themselves have nearly identical statistics, with Terry, in this case, with a slight edge over his fellow Hall of Fame brother Bobby. But what about Justin Labonte? Much like his father and uncle, he was a competitive NASCAR driver, striving to make it to the top and extend the family legacy to another generation. Yet, when you mention Justin Labonte to most NASCAR fans, chances are they're going to go point blank. On this special premiere of the Disappearance series, we're going to look at Justin Labonte. We're going to really delve down into what his career was like, why he just didn't make it, and what he's doing today in his spare time. All that and more is coming right up. Trinity, North Carolina, a town not only home to the world's longest Hot Wheels track built by Kyle Petty, but also a place Justin Labonte himself was born and raised. Much like his father, the second generation Labonte would take to the track and try to make a very competitive racing career for himself. This time, it would be at the ripe age of 15, in the form of short tracks all across the Carolinas. His most noteworthy accomplishments came during the Legend Summer Shootout Series at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Charlotte's quarter-mile track has seen some of NASCAR's brightest stars as of recent go through there, including the likes of Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, and William Byron, to name a few. And much like those current stars, Justin Labonte's name was also made on that track as he won back-to-back championships on the quarter-mile course within the speedway itself. Then for 1998, he would make the next step up the ladder, which would be with the Cars Tour. But at the time, he had the great pleasure, the great honor of driving for the series dubbed the USAR Hooters Pro Cup Series. Now, Justin Labonte probably finished first numerous times in this series, just not on the racetrack. No wins in 29 career Pro Cup Series races. However, if you could say one thing, the 17-year-old brought his Chevrolets home in one piece. That actually awarded him the consistency accolade, as Labonte completed 97% of the season's completed on-track laps. And gauging from this, you could tell from an early age, Justin Labonte didn't tear up equipment, he could bring stuff home, and that is very good to lure in big team owners and sponsorship. They don't want a guy that's going to tear up their equipment and make them spend millions and millions on damaged race cars every single week. So it was definitely a big deal for a 17-year-old at the pretty young age to win such an award like that. Now, when we're talking about his first major NASCAR opportunity, he didn't have to look very far to find one. In fact, he didn't even have to leave his own house. Enter Labonte Motorsports, as Terry Labonte himself had tried to field an XFINITY team and try to get off the ground to a competitive level. Some of the drivers included himself, Darrell Waltrip, Bobby Hamilton, and other drivers just trying to build a footing and climb up the ladder. But now the keys would be handed over to Justin, at least for a couple races, driving the number 44 Slim Jim Chevrolet. His first ever race would be at the age of 18 in Nashville. Not the super speedway, but the very fairgrounds itself. Unfortunate for him, Labonte would end up having issues and crashed on lap 15. Now, at his young age, he got very discouraged from his first start, but fortunately, his uncle Bobby and Terry continued to push him to keep going and keep striving to be a competitive NASCAR driver. Therefore, he would make 8 more starts on the year, with a best finish of 14th coming in Myrtle Beach. Meanwhile, for the new millennium, Justin Labonte would continue driving for his father's team. The only change came on the crew chiefing side, as Kevin Caldwell took over instead of Eddie Lowry. Now, on the XFINITY side, there was nothing noteworthy about this season. Labonte would DNQ from the field 9 times, including a streak of 6 races in a row spanning from IRP to the fall race at Charlotte. And then he also only scored 1 top 20 finish in his handful of races. And then, through his 13 starts, he would only finish in the top 20 once. A 20th place finish at Nashville. It was very disappointing, and that type of stuff can drag down a young driver. However, he fared so much better in his ARCA starts for the team, which included a 2nd place finish at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. So after one more ARCA start in 2001, Justin Labonte decided to leave his father's team and attempt to carve his own path in this sport. Labonte would sign a developmental contract with Cunningham Motorsports. Now, at the time, this was a team that was trying to build from the ground up, as they were 3-4 years into their existence, and they were trying to build a stability in XFINITY and ARCA. In addition to Chevrolets, the team also ran Dodges, which expanded Justin Labonte to other owners such as Ray Evernham. So if he can make an impression, he could further climb up the ladder, get some sponsors, and maybe get a full-time XFINITY or Cup ride. In terms of the XFINITY series, he attempted 3 races in 2002, failing to qualify for all 3. And then for 2003, his only career XFINITY series start with Cunningham Motorsports, he came across the line 29th, 1 lap off the lead pace. Meanwhile, his ARCA stats with the team were rather mediocre, as he only made 7 starts, only 2 of which he finished in the top 15. Now, without a doubt, his most notable start was an ARCA race at Nashville, which he led 52 laps, but unfortunately, he got into an accident and ended up finishing a rather mediocre 14th. So for his 3 years in Cunningham Motorsports, it was a rather rocky road for the young star. Throughout all this, meanwhile, Justin Labonte continued to race the Saturday night races at Caraway and other short tracks across the Atlantic region. I'm sure the question that comes to mind is, why race in these no-name events, you ask? Because as a racer, you never know what big names, specifically team owners or drivers with big pockets, are scouting the quarter-mile dirt tracks and ovals across the country. You never know when people such as Billy Hagan are watching, as he was the very guy that helped Terry Labonte get his start back in the 1970s. Yet, no competitive owner was willing to give him some seat time, except of course, for his own bloodline. After a bit of a hiatus, Labonte Motorsports was back. This time, it would be Justin Labonte running a limited NASCAR XFINITY Series schedule, and to make things even better, he got some secured sponsorship from the United States Coast Guard. So, in the first 7 races with Bryant Frazier on the pit box, things were a bit tedious. After all, the team was getting warmed up. His only top 20 finish on the season so far had been in Charlotte, taking the Coast Guard Dodge to an 18th place finish. So definitely, the team needed something to happen, and that big moment would come on July 10th, 2004. It was a hot day in the Windy City where Justin Labonte was on the grid, ready to strap in for 300 miles. For a race infested with Cup guys, and then other drivers like Martin Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch trying to make a name, not very many people had Justin Labonte as the guy to get it done. But to the fortune of Justin Labonte, guys such as Bobby Hamilton Jr., Mike Bliss, and Matt Kenseth would have issues in this race. It was a race where undoubtedly the leader was jinxed, so it was a good thing that Justin Labonte lurked around until the very end. Towards the conclusion of the race, Labonte was in second and was creeping in on Mike Wallace. In this very instance, the 4 team was trying out some pit strategy as they tried to stretch it out 70 laps on 1 fuel tank. Something that seemed impossible was working out, and on the final lap, Mike Wallace had the lead and Justin Labonte just couldn't catch him. But then of course, the leader's jinx would have its fair share just one more time.
Look at that! Mike Wallace, is he out of fuel?
He's out of gasoline.
You don't want to lead this race.
You just don't want to lead, is right.
Off of turn number 4 for his first NASCAR Busch Series win. Say hello to Justin Labonte as he wins the Twister 300 at Chicagoland.
And just like that, Justin Labonte came across the line to win his first career race and become the 2nd generation in the Labonte family to win a NASCAR sanctioned race. Now, Justin Labonte was really thrilled after the race, but that didn't come close to the excitement in Joliet, Illinois coming from his father, Terry Labonte. He stated, "To me personally, it was bigger than any win I've ever had. I couldn't even talk after the race. It's pretty special. It really is. I don't know what else to say." I'm sure in hearing how he won this race, a lot of you are saying, "Oh, he won on fuel mileage, pure luck. What a has-been driver he was." But a lot of his competitors disagreed, which included NASCAR winner and 3rd place finisher in that race, Jeff Burton. He was quoted in saying he didn't have the fastest car, but something good happened to a good person and a good family, and that's pretty cool to see. He earned the race. Nobody gave it to him. People will say he got lucky. They made the right call. They made the right calls to win the race. So with his first win under his belt, you say, how would Justin Labonte carry the momentum? Actually, not very well, as that was his only top 10 finish on the year. His next best finish would be 14th at Michigan, with more sub 25th place finishes along the way. It was clearly evident that Labonte Motorsports, they were decent, but they were far from the likes of Hendrick Motorsports, Chance to Chance Motorsports, and Roush Racing as a competitive Xfinity team. Undoubtedly, either Justin Labonte needed to get a better opportunity, or the team would need to get better as a result. And fortunately, that would come prior to the 2005 season. Labonte Motorsports would cross paths with Haas CNC Racing, otherwise known as Stewart-Haas Racing, before they got good. Compared to their embarrassing tenure in Cup before they paired up with Tony Stewart, Haas Xfinity was actually pretty good at the time. The team showed some prowess with Jason Leffler, with their main highlight being the organization's first Xfinity win at Nashville. As part of the move, Bryant Frazier would continue crew chiefing for this entry. But this time, the team would run Chevrolets instead of Dodges, and Bryant Frazier would have a stronger fleet of cars on top of his solid notes from the season prior. You would think they're much better now. They have a lot of the pieces, and they have a driver that can do really well and has a lot of promise. I think the better thing for them would be to get a couple top 5s, top 10s, and maybe have a breakout season towards the second half of the year. That would not be the case, as Justin Labonte had tons of inconsistencies through the first half of the season. After a stretch of 3 crashes in a row, Frazier was exiled. This time it would be Harold Holley taking over for the second half of the season. In this time period, Justin Labonte ultimately got better, turning some of his top 25 races into sub-top 15 results. But in the end, the Haas CNC Racing 44 and Justin Labonte as a driver, they were just simply mid-pack. Only 2 top 10s on the year, en route to a rather mediocre 17th place finish in the point standings. So at the end of 2005, Justin Labonte left Haas CNC with Johnny Sauter replacing him for the full 35 race campaign. And believe it or not, he would finally get a competitive opportunity in 2006. It would be for Hendrick Motorsports, driving the number 5 Xfinity Series entry, a car that has so much success and has won a bunch of races. So for his only start at Memphis, you want to know where Justin Labonte finished in this car? 22nd. And this is with a team that won a race and led a handful of laps with Kyle Busch. And from that race, Labonte would only make 3 more NASCAR sanctioned starts, all in the Truck Series. 1 with Bill Davis and 2 driving the Lucky Dog Tundra for DW. Under the ownership of the latter, Labonte would score a 12th place finish driving the Aaron's Dream Machine at Martinsville. Little did we know, that would be his final start in NASCAR competition. He would slowly fade out of the picture, much like his father and uncle would over the next half-decade. So what has happened to Justin Labonte since? Today, Justin is married to his lovely wife, Miranda, and she herself has been through adversity after getting diagnosed with stage 2B triple-negative breast cancer a few short years ago. Fortunately, she has now overwent 4 years cancer-free. And most certainly, the two have been blessed with 2 children of their own and reside currently in the Tar Heel state. Meanwhile, on the racing side, Justin is a part of a shared racing venture alongside his father Terry and Uncle Bobby. For over a decade, the Labonte family has operated Longhorn chassis at the place where Justin grew up in Trinity, North Carolina. For a bit of info, and I guess an advertisement, Longhorn is a full-service late model and modified supplier, with a full slate of parts, fabrication, and supply machine services to fit all your racing needs. And as proclaimed by the website, Longhorn has the national championship reputation and has countless wins to be a leader in this division. And just hearing that and taking the success of the Labonte family, I'm sure the business is doing really well and has such high standards. And who knows, chances are if you're attending a local race in Randolph County, you may just find Justin Labonte amongst the competitors. And I'm very sure in the late model division, he's very consistent and he's probably won a majority of races here and there. So why did Justin Labonte fail to have such a successful career in NASCAR after his bloodline did so well? Justin Labonte didn't get a lot of full-time opportunities. He wasn't racing NASCAR XFINITY cars or ARCA cars on a weekly basis. He couldn't learn and develop, and it seemed like he was stagnated in the mid-20s, and he just couldn't break out of that. And guess what? As we saw, he didn't gain a lot of sponsors, and he didn't gain a lot of attention from owners to get a better ride and possibly make a bigger name for himself. Quite honestly, I see him as the 2005 version of Jeffrey Earnhardt. He seemed to do okay in his equipment, but yeah, he just couldn't take it to the next level. I think it's going to become a grave question for years to come as to what Justin Labonte's career would have looked like if he would have had the major sponsorship and he would have gotten his opportunity like Terry Labonte before him got and excelled really well at. But at the very least, he won the Tropicana 300 and got a pretty cool trophy at the end of the day. So anyways, this is NRF signing out, and just remember, life's a beach and then you drive.